Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for whoever put me right after Tommy. It makes my life much easier now that everyone now here is familiar with OpenGov and the technical aspect of it. So this talk is deeply personal and political. I'm not going to get too deep into the tech aspect of OpenGov. I'm going to take you into a journey on the place that I call home, the place that taught me everything I know about how governance should never be. So, my name is Karam, and I'm the governance lead with Web3 Foundation. I joined earlier this year after over 12 years of working in governance, but most importantly in the intersection of social impact, grants management, and activism. I was managing some of the US government's grants in countries that are experiencing crisis, including my country, Syria. And the place that I call home is not the nostalgic aspect of what home is, but more the reality of where we were living there. So Syria is, for those of you that don't know, a small country in eastern the Mediterranean, in the Arab world. We're southern Turkey, western Iraq, northern Jordan. We're less than 23 million in terms of the amount of citizens, and the size is relatively small, but the global impact has been big. Syria has the oldest inhabited capital on earth, which is Damascus. And we are the birthplace of alphabet, music, agriculture, tech, and many other things. But we also had been living in crisis for over 50 years because we've been governed by a tyrant family, I would say, the Assad family, that have been taking over Syria since the 70s, from the father to the son. And basically, you can imagine living in Syria as if you have a mask on your face every time you go on the streets, and that mask is not the physical one, but the psychological one. You can't say no for anything. It's a dictatorship. You can never be honest about how you feel, so to say. Cameras on every corner, and I mean by that not the physical ones, but also the human one, the secret service, the secret police. You can really disappear in a minute if you say anything wrong about the government. And the idea of cameras is that we have, even if these cameras are dysfunctional, so to say, they don't work. Just the idea of their existence is a tool for surveillance and a tool of fear. We have a saying that says basically every wall have ears, which means that you cannot even trust your family if you have any political opinion about anything. You cannot trust your mom, your dad, your cousins, etc. And since the 70s and even until now, hundreds of thousands have stayed in jails. Before the uprising, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about in a bit, when you disappear in jail, you disappear forever. And you can think of jails not like the Hollywood Prison Break, where you can still see the sun, you can still read a book, you can still fight your friends. It's really a piece of hell, 3 floors under the ground, with death as something that occurs on a daily or hourly basis. And there was structurally no exit possible. So basically, if you say no, your identity could be taken away from you. You can never leave the country, but also you could be complicit in your own oppression by the idea of your family could be in danger. Say you leave, you find a way to smuggle yourself outside of the country. Your family at home, if you say anything while you're outside of the country, could be arrested and could be subjected to death. And this was home. In 2011, we started what we call the Syrian Uprising, driven by calls and coordination and organization of demonstrations that also happened online using Facebook and WhatsApp. So we started with peaceful demonstrations in 2011 in March. I was one activist out of hundreds of thousands that started going out against the Syrian regime. Intensity of demonstrations increased, and also the the impact or like the response by the Syrian government as well. So we moved from attacking, the regime moved from attacking demonstrations to basically destroy cities. This is a picture I took from my own city in 2013. You can see how the houses are melting into the ground because of the airstrikes, because of the attacks of the government and so on. And throughout this period as well, I mentioned hundreds of thousands have been detained. I was one of these detainees. I spent between 2011 to 2014 4 times in jail, over 1.5 years in a room, 5x 6 meters, crammed with 120 individuals. And throughout this time that I spent, which is almost a year, out of the 120 individuals who were with me, 73 died out of torture. It was a miracle that I'm out, and a miracle that I managed to smuggle myself to exit in a way. Destruction continued, death continued. We had, I told you, 23 million Syrians that live in Syria. Half of the population are either internally displaced or refugees outside of Syria. Up until December 2024, where finally we managed to take over Damascus. And this happened less than a year. We have the anniversary in a month from now. Assad left Syria, took the gold from the central bank, and took an airplane and left. And then the rebels took over Damascus, and now we're rebuilding the whole government. Why I'm telling you all of this, and what does it mean? When thinking about governance, I saw a lot of like similarities in a way between some of the governance systems that we deal with on a daily basis. And I distilled what I call the Damascus principles, which is principles that are related to online governance or decentralized governance. And they're Damascus principles not because they're uniquely Syrian, because they're not. They happen in any country that are basically, or they're related to things that are happening in every country that is experiencing crisis, but because they're paid for by the Syrian blood. The main idea, and the first one, and I think that have really impacted me, is the idea of comfort breeding consent and friction makes citizens. And what I mean here is that authoritarians love frictionless systems. If your system is frictionless, this means that basically a dictator sitting on top can have a decision, and a bureaucracy can implement so fast, so quick, with the idea of efficiency. But the same efficiency that can build you hospitals is an efficiency that could technically build you jails. The same speed of which they provide services is the speed that they can use to create disappearances. Centralization loves fast. This relates to the same idea. Tyranny loves fast. When moving from basically, when you wanna build a system that is just fast, speed is not the only tool you could use, and speed is not something that you can just rely on. What I mean here is slow systems are better than fast systems. And the fact that slowness allows you to basically have more scrutiny over the decisions you make. And something you can see in OpenGov, like we have adaptive quorum biasing, and the idea of like, if there is much more controversy around one specific proposal, the time for it to be enacted takes, or like voted on, takes a lot more. Exit makes voice honest. Similar to the idea of in Syria, when you have no exit, you basically just become part of the system and you become complicit in your own oppression. If you have no exit in any system, then your voice, you're captured by your own basically like ideas or focus on trying to get funding. And then when you just focus on trying to get funding or trying to become accepted in the ecosystem, then your voice becomes really unhonest, and the exit aspect of it becomes intolerable. Hope isn't strategy, protocol is. What I mean here is, yes, hope is amazing, beautiful, nice, etc. We spent, of course, without hope, 14 years of the revolution would have been gone in vain. We kept that hope that one day God would do something. One day the international community is gonna have an action against Assad. But hope alone is not enough. Hope is not the strategy in itself. You need codified rules that basically allows you or allows for things to be executed nevertheless who's on top, nevertheless what their ideas, nevertheless what their goals, nevertheless if they woke up this morning dreaming about something else and changing their brain about it. I'm going to talk a little bit on how did we get right now in terms of like the idea of decentralized governance. I know most of you know that anyways, but the idea of governance started with kings ruling with the divine order or divine rights. Then it moved to government saying we are ruled by the rules we ourselves create. And then to corporations where investors through their own capital are the ones that are ruling, up until this point where no one rules or everyone does. And OpenGov, in its simplest form, is the protocol of which you can have a public proposal that goes through origins and tracks. We have different tracks for different different focus. So, for example, if you want to spend funds, it's a different track that to go through. If you want to request some change in OpenGov, then you go through a wish for change, for example. And then we have the root track and other types of tracks. There is no one first-class citizen. We even saw that when Gavin Wood wanted to request something from OpenGov, he went through the same type of process that we have right now, with maybe one small caveat, which is the fellowship whitelist, which allows us to get some slightly faster decisions when it comes to OpenGov, as the code would already be whitelisted by a group of devs that have met and talked about it, and voted on-chain anyways. What are some of the anti-capture mechanics that are baked in OpenGov when we think about it? And when thinking about this, keep Syria in your brain, in your mind, when thinking about the principles or the Damascus principles that I mentioned before. There is no small attack surface in OpenGov. Basically, there is no one who's sitting on a throne. There is no one who has an admin key or sudo key that you can hack and then change anything you want about it. Conviction requires commitment. You know that we have 1x, 2x, 3x, up until 6x conviction when it comes to votes. So if you're a whale or you're a normal dot holder and you want your impact to be bigger in terms of the of your vote, then you can lock it for a period of time that is longer than others. And basically your vote's impact become bigger in the tally. We have adaptive basing, which is if something is already accepted by the community, most of votes are A, it can pass faster. When it's contentious, when there is a lot of A's and a lot of nays, then it would take longer time to either be enacted or moving from A to nay. And sunlight as disinfectant. This is the exit aspect that I mentioned before. When things are not going right, things can change, things can be voted on, and nothing is frozen, so to say. So I mentioned no frozen rules over here. And these are the Defiance by design elements similar to it, but just contextualized more. We talk about distribution, we talk about transparency, participation, and exit, all baked in OpenGov. There's some type of conversation that is happening right now. I remember Tommy talked before about the idea of you cannot just have a forum on top of a protocol and you say this is governance. But similar to this, code is the basis and culture is the exponent. Resilient governance lives in this space in between human judgment and code automation. When we talk about code automation, we're definitely talking about tallying, scheduling, and execution. When we talk about human judgment, code cannot do trade-offs, code cannot be ethical, code cannot have understanding of content, so to say, based on the experiences of those that are participating in governance. So resilience lives in this liminal space in between both. And culture is governance capital. which means that as long as we have disclosure, civility, evidence-based debate, then we basically have resilient governance. Two ideas I want you to also take with you about OpenGov that I've started to see a lot recently is the idea of any voice on OpenGov and any voice on Polkadot, on Kusama, can become all voices. And that we have a transparent structure. Nothing can be hidden forever. You can still track and find out why some decisions have been made as they are. Last 1 or 2 points, thank you, is some of the things that we're working on right now. Tommy told you guys about us voting, which has it has been enacted this week or last week when we voted our first vote. But yeah, Web3 Foundation is going to become another stakeholder. It has been another stakeholder in the ecosystem, but we're going to become more proactive in terms of votes and also in terms of suggesting and proposing things that are related to Treasury. There has been some adjustments for OpenGov that are enacted by the community, suggested by the agents, and by anyone and everyone who works or like interacts with OpenGov. Some of these adjustments would mean that, for example, some of the tracks that we have would have less amount of like immediate live referenda that are running together. And the last thing is the Kusama vision, which is kicking off. It's going to start in the next month, hopefully, by mid to last. For these of you that don't know, Web3 Foundation is going to give $10 million to the Kusama to reinvigorate or like to re-establish it as the not just the experimental hub, but the main hub for ideas that are related to zero knowledge proof, zero tech, proof of personhood, and art and culture. We already started receiving applications, so we have over 20 curators and 3 bounties. And basically, the aim is to launch mid to late December. You can already start sending us any ideas you might have for this, for these 3 bounties at KV Kusama Vision at web3.foundation. OpenGov is an architecture of defiance. You are the architects. Please join us and keep it running. Thank you guys so much.
Yay! That was amazing. We're going to open it for questions, but I want to know if culture is the same as vibes. Like, when do we have proof of vibes? Definitely not as cool as code, but are there any questions? We'll run over to you with a microphone. Raise your hand. Don't all raise your hand at once. Here she goes.
Yes.
This is amazing. We're such a good team.
Thank you very much. I really like how you connect your story to OpenGov because it gives an outlook that you didn't mention. And if you want, how do you think that OpenGov can change society based on the story that you introduced us to?
I think I mentioned some aspect of it when I talked about the idea that OpenGov is inherently an architecture of defiance with the code that is baked into it. It's an experiment. It's still going on. It can continue and will continue forever to be an experiment. I think it should never be frictionless. We should always continue to find friction and work on it. To which extent it could work, the main goal actually of me connecting the story to this is the idea that I want to see us looking south. Now we're south, we're in Argentina, kind of. But it seems to me that most protocols and most blockchains right now are quite limited into the ideas and the life of the Western society, so to say. So unless we can look further, unless we can try to look into countries where Web3 makes the most sense, which is countries experiencing crisis, countries without a banking system, countries that need a system to try to hide their identity, use basically like blockchain tech to try to take down governments. As long as we still don't see that yet in the applications of blockchain, I don't know to which extent. Sorry, you want to say something? Go ahead. Yeah. So I hope that one day we can see some of the civil societies groups that are in these countries, in countries experiencing crisis, using OpenGov with, I don't know, like proof of identity or without, to try to vote on things that might make sense to their societies. I hope to see OpenGov used by a municipality that is in a federation, so to say, and basically like making decisions that everyone can participate in within this protocol or that. That's my hope. Whether it's going to work or not, it's something to see as the experiment evolves.
So we saw I guess, nation state put a president, an AI president into play. How do you see that and this? Do you foresee a coupling of the two in the future as an experiment?
Can you, Karam, will you kind of repeat the question back to her so that the translators can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we see AI and the idea of blockchain basically coupled with each other?
No. So
yeah.
A nation state voted in an AI president. And I'm wondering if through this, for voting, right? They did the voting on Discord, is my understanding, or Reddit. It was one of the two.
Discord.
Mm-hmm. And so if they were using this, like what we're standing up, right? One vote, one person eventually, and right? Do we also think that we would experiment with an AI president along with this technology, is what I'm asking.
I'm not the most, I know. I'm not the most expert on AI, but I'm going to say what I say, which is the idea that I come from a place where we're still fighting for electricity, so to say. However, it's a permissionless system. If you just think about OpenGov, I talked about the intersection of human judgment and code. I don't see this work alone. I don't think that an AI president can be ethical, so to say, or can make decisions that are basically like moral and so on. So this aspect is, however, it's a permissionless system. Once you launch it on, if the community would vote on it, then it's the decision of the community. No one can stop it. And it's unstoppable, so to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Karam.
No
we
worries.
appreciate you. Please, a big round of applause. Thank you, buddy.